Mark is a keen basketballer, and let's say during a play he twists awkwardly, falls to the floor and hurts his knee. He notices it's very painful and it starts swelling. A teammate and the coach say, you need to get some ice on that. But should he? There's a question now about the role of ice following injury, and there are situations when he should use ice and when he shouldn't, which we'll discuss in this video. His teammates and coach are likely relying on the classic RICE acronym for guidance here. The recommendation to rest, ice, compress and elevate following an injury. This has been a common recommendation for decades, and back in the 70s the idea of protection was added to it, so it became PRICE. But fast forward a couple of decades and the first change to this came with the realisation that absolute rest may be negative for healing. The idea of optimal loading came in. Obviously, you don't want to be doing too much if you're injured, but complete rest is no good. So it's finding that optimal load. The acronym changed to POLICE, but now ice is coming into question with its role. One of the major benefits of ice is its efficiency as a painkiller. So with Mark being given ice for his knee, it would help with reducing some of the pain experienced. However, swelling is the body's natural response to injury, and there are benefits to the inflammatory process, specifically IGF-1, which initiates healing. By Mark adding ice in this case, he may be preventing the body naturally releasing this, which means it may be delaying the healing process. For this reason, in 2019, it was removed from the guidance for injuries. A new acronym to take over is PEACE and LOVE. I'm pretty sure they just added some stuff for the sake of it to make this acronym work, but it stands for protection, elevation, avoid anti-inflammatory meds, compression, education, load, optimism, vascularization, and exercise. So, even if ice delays healing slightly but helps with pain, should we use it? The answer really is probably not. However, there are certain situations to use ice. Some inflammation is good, but too much and prolonged swelling isn't. Say in this case, if Mark had excessive swelling, where it is restricting movement of his knee and inhibiting muscle function, then ice would become a useful tool. Not to reduce all the swelling, but limit it so the range of movement and muscle function could be improved. And regardless of whether having swelling or not, for the best path to recovery, Mark would be following the advice in this video here in order to get back playing basketball again as soon as possible.